Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is David. This is episode 2192B, and today's date is June 5th, 2020, and the title of the episode is Optics in Place, Alert Readiness Severe Critical. We knew this day would come. Now, before I get started, let's talk about online security. During a recent vote, the U.S. Senate has agreed to give law enforcement agencies access to web browsing history data without needing to obtain a warrant first. It is now more essential than ever to browse the web using a VPN or virtual private network. The VPN I choose is Virtual Shield because it's the fastest, easiest, and has plug-and-play 30-day free trial. Due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield wants to offer a 50% off all VPN plans. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is all about. You have nothing to lose. Click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the mainstream media, the Ds, they are planning to make their move. They're going to take these riots to the next level. And the patriots, they understand the plan. They understand the playbook. They realize what is happening. Remember, the deep state, the Ds, the mainstream media, all of these groups, they are part of the same system. They know if they don't take back the country one way or another, they're all going to jail. Trump, the patriots, they have it all. And they can see now that they are dripping the information out. They are preparing the entire narrative so the country understands the story of how this happened, how they went about it, how they didn't follow rules because they wanted to reach a certain goal, how they spied not just on a president, but spied on senators, judges, the American people. This is all going to be brought out. Add on top of that treason, sedition, crimes against humanity, money laundering, you name it. These people understand that if they don't get rid of Trump, their days of being in Congress, their days of being free, it is finished. This is why we're going to see them fight. Now, nobody's ever said that this was going to be easy. I know a lot of people saying, well, all we have to do is round them up, arrest them, put them in jail, and then we can try them. Not when you have outside forces that are working against you. Remember, the judges, part of the swamp. A lot of the mayors, governors, part of the swamp. A lot of the departments within government, part of the swamp. If the arrests happened in the beginning, nothing would have happened. Look at Flynn. Look what it took to show that they were railroading Flynn, that he did nothing wrong. We had a corrupt prosecutor working with a corrupt judge to put away Flynn. This is what would have happened if we would have arrested everyone. Plus, you need the people's support. You need to show how evil these individuals are, what they have done. You need to build the narrative. And this is what we see happening right now. Not just with spying. People now can see with the pandemic what has happened. A lot of people woke up. People now see with the riots, and we know this has nothing to do with racism. This is about taking back control. They are now watching, observing what is going on, because this is going to morph into something completely different. And as you watch it, you're going to see it morph. Soon, you probably won't even hear the name George Floyd. You'll just hear, "Let's get Trump." This is how it's going to morph. And we'll be talking about all of this a little bit later in this report. But first, we can see Trump right now. He has now placed a new individual that's going to head up Voice of America. And the past individual that was controlling, directing Voice of America was not for America. This is what Trump tweeted out. Congratulations to Michael Pack. Nobody has any idea what a big victory this is for America. Why? Because he is going to be running the Voice of America and everything associated with it. Michael is tough, smart, and loves our country. This has been a big battle in Congress for 25 years. Thank you to our great Republican Senate. Now, these individuals in Congress, they have been blocking Trump from getting this individual to head up Voice of America, because now the narrative is going to change. The person who was previously running it was part of the swamp, part of the mainstream media swamp, and they went along with the mainstream media narrative. Now, Voice of America is going to go against the mainstream media narrative right now. Now, this is very interesting because, as we know, the deep state, they use the mainstream media as their brainwashing system where they keep repeating the same story. Now, if Voice of America counters the mainstream media, well, people are going to start to notice, and I do believe this is the first step of shutting down the mainstream media and countering what the mainstream media is saying. Because I think in the end, Trump, the Patriots, they're going to have to silence the mainstream media one way or another and show that they're not reporting truthfully. And this is why Trump, since he got into office, has been pointing at the mainstream media, saying that they are completely fake, phony, and false. This is why every time they come out with a story like the hydroxychloroquine story with the Lancet report, this is why we all jumped on these things to say, listen, this is completely fake. And they use it like it's gospel. And they talk about what happened in Lafayette Park and everything else that we've seen in the past. And it seems, same thing with Russian collusion, you name it. And as time goes on, people are going to start to wake up more so than ever before. And we're seeing it happen right now. Now, the deep state, we know that they're preparing for this second wave. We know that they're going to take out everything that they have and use it against Trump. Now, they were hoping that this entire event, the pandemic, would last until November, but it is not. So now everything is opening up. They're going to build the narrative that it's going to be coming back, and they're going to be using the rioters for this. And they're going to say that the rioters, because they were rioting, that they were close together, this might bring back COVID-19. Now remember, Trump has many different things in his back pocket. And remember, he has Operation Warp Speed. No, he's not going to be making vaccines mandatory. They're working on vaccines. They're working on therapeutics. He's leading way more to therapeutics. I think one of them is hydroxychloroquine. There could be others. Once these are FDA approved, he will use this to counter the second wave. They've already planned for this. And we know the mainstream media, they're continually out there telling us that these protests are completely peaceful when they are not. So we found out more information about what happened in Lafayette Park. We know no tear gas was used. The police were not wearing masks to protect themselves from it. We know that everything they talked about where they were just peaceful, standing there, the protesters, they were not. They were throwing things. And then we come to find out, and this is from Kerry Kupik, Department of Justice, that the rioters used crowbars to dig out the pavers at Lafayette Park and use them as projectiles thrown at Secret Service and other Fed agents. There were numerous head injuries among Feds whose responsibility is to protect the White House. So they were digging up bricks and using this. Now remember, what normally happens is the protesters, they push them to the front. Antifa, the terrorists, they stay in the back and they throw things over the protesters to the police. So it gives the illusion that the people in the front, they didn't do anything, but in fact, there are people behind them throwing things. So it looks like the police are then reacting on the peaceful people. This is how they coordinate and plan. And this is why when you see videos, they cut off the other part and they only show the part where the police are coming in and doing something. Now, Maxine Waters is out there, and she's classifying the term rioting as negative language. Pretty soon they're going to say you're not allowed to use the word rioting because you have to be politically correct. Well, you know something? When you're destroying millions of dollars worth of property, you're hurting everyday citizens, you can't tell us what word to use. Actually, you can never tell us what word to use. But they're trying to steer everyone away from the word rioting. And guess what? That is not going to work because there are so many videos out there on social media showing how these people, as soon as the sun goes down, all of a sudden the rioting starts to happen. And out in Minneapolis, the officials right now, they're estimating that there's $55 million in property damage from all these peaceful protests. You know what I think they should make them do? I think all these mayors, the governors, all these politicians who say, hey, I don't see any rioting, they should pay for all of this. This should come out of their pocket. The mayors that set up the safe zones, that called back the police and said, hey, don't do anything, those who bailed them out of prison, they should pay for all the damage. I mean, I'm not even getting into arrests and things like that, but it shouldn't come out of the taxpayers' money. We shouldn't have to borrow. We shouldn't have to go to insurance. These individuals should pay for it. Let's get into some of Q's posts here. And what I've done now is I've intertwined a lot of the things that I was going to talk about because Q has been posting about it. But yesterday I realized that I forgot a post. This is 4408, and this is a link to plato.stanford.edu. And this is what it says. The Enlightenment is often associated with its political revolutions and ideals, specifically the French Revolution of 1789. The energy created and expressed by the intellectual foment of Enlightenment thinkers contributes to the growing wave of social unrest in France in the 18th century. The social unrest comes to a head in the violent political upheaval which sweeps away the traditionally and hierarchical structure ancien regime, the monarchy, the privileges of the nobility, the political power of the Catholic Church. The French revolutionaries meant to establish in place of the ancien regime a new reason-based order instituting the Enlightenment ideals of liberty and equality. Enlightenment with the process of undertaking to think for oneself, to employ and rely on one's own intellectual capacities in determining what to believe and how to act. We are in the middle right now of another Enlightenment approaching the precipice, where people are going to have to make a decision. Is what we're seeing okay? Does this fit into the world you want to live in? And I do believe a lot of people are waking up saying, no, this is not the world I want to live in. Let's move on to post 4412. This is a Twitter link to Trump, and it says, I thought this letter from respected retired Marine and superstar lawyer John Dowd would be of interest to the American people. Read it. So let's see what this letter says. I slept on your statement and woke up appalled and upset. You lost me. Never dreamed you would let a bunch of hack politicians use your good name and reputation earned with the blood and guts of young Marines. You did what you said you would, engage in this discourse. Marines keep their word. The phony protesters near Lafayette Park were not peaceful and are not real. They are terrorists using idle hate-filled students to burn and destroy. They are abusing and disrespecting the police when the police were preparing the area for the 1900 curfew. Jim, this is the new nihilism. See Dan Henninger in the Wall Street Journal today. Marines support the police in harm's way. Did you forget that that President Bush used active duty Marines to quell the riots in L.A.? President Trump has countless cities and some snowflake governors, mayors, wetting themselves in the use of force to protect innocent lives and property. The AG of Massachusetts thinks burning property is good protest. 3 more policemen were stabbed and shot in New York City last night. Think about it. Should he be upset about the obvious failure of leadership? Where are you, Jim? Marines go to the fight. No one divided this country more than Obama. He abandoned our black brothers and sisters. He gave guns to the cartels. He apologized for our precious sacrifice and generosities overseas. You remember, he fired you. President Trump has done more to help our minority brothers and sisters in 3 years than anyone in the last 50. Ask the black pastors. Ask the leaders of the black colleges and universities. He got them funded. Ask them about the prison reform, which ended the draconian sentences imposed on young black men by the laws enacted by Biden and his hacks. You need to bone up on your homework and stop listening to Uncle Leon. I understand you had to stick to the assigned narrative, which did not include 3 years of corrupt investigations and evidence to destroy the president, his office, and his lawful free election. Nancy has no tolerance for dissent in the ranks, including those with stars. You said nothing on the ugly, hate-filled, disgraceful comments of Pelosi, Schumer, Perez, and other Democrats, hacks, defaming the president and his office. You said nothing of unlawful sanctuary cities and the unlawful release of hoodlums. You said nothing of the resistance movement to paralyze our courts and our government operations. You said nothing of the obstruction and subversion of our immigration laws. You said nothing of MS-13 killers and the drug cartels who own huge sections of our major cities. Jim, do you think that hateful rhetoric and those corrupt actions were inspiring and unifying? Maybe your problem is a lot deeper. Perhaps you ought to explain how and why you and John Allen, as CG Central Command, did not engage and take out Iranian Major General Soleimani, who roamed the Middle East and wreaked havoc and death of our American boys with his infamous IEDs. Why did it take President Trump to have the instincts and balls to take him out? Of course, over the objection, the geniuses in the Pentagon. Looks like the Persian mullahs were a one-horse sleigh, and Trump nailed the horse forever. It has been quite quiet ever since. Perhaps your anger is bone of embarrassment for your own failure as the leader of Central Command. Did you applaud when the president recognized the central problem in the Middle East? Did you applaud the president when he wanted to save American lives by bringing them home in one piece? John M. Dowd, and he's talking to Jim Mattis. It says, we are fighting for our survival. Let's move on to post 4413. Gives us the American flag and gives us a Twitter link to Axios, and it says Ambassador Kedenow becomes 5th Pentagon official to resign in 7 days. Then gives us a Twitter link to Call Out for Truth, and it says sources are telling Dan Bongino that they are genuinely concerned that some upper-level people in our military are openly talking about defying the President of the United States. That's got a name. That's called mutiny. Those loyal to our Constitution, Republic, and our command structure. Those loyal to the office of the President and the will of the people. Those who swore an oath to protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Those good people who serve proudly for America. Castle Rock. Now, Castle Rock, we know that Castle is the White House, and if it says Castle Lock, we know that the White House is going to be locked down. Now, Castle Rock, does that mean it's going to be fortified like a rock because something is about to happen? And we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Then down below it says, for God and country. Let's move on to post 4414. This says EAM loyalists. Now, many people believe this is the emergency action message. And it's saying those who are still loyal to the Constitution. Then down below, it says Red 1, POTUS Twitter removal. So it looks like they're going to remove Trump's Twitter account. They're going to take down his comms that he uses. Red 2, Central Communications blackout, continental U.S. Well, it looks like they might be taking down communications, maybe social media, so people cannot communicate with each other, and maybe other type of communications. At this point, I do believe this brings us to the emergency broadcast system or the emergency alert system that Q has referenced in other posts. Red 3, classification, movement, Pelosi or Pence. Now, why is Q talking about Pence or Pelosi? Well, we have to remember the succession. If something should happen to the president, who becomes the president next in line? That is Pence. If something happens to Pence, what happens next? Pelosi becomes president. So what is Q talking about? Talking about hiding Pence just in case something happens to Trump, because this is their plan. Their plan is to get rid of both of them so Pelosi can then become president and they take back control. That's the whole object here. Let's continue. Red 4, movement of military assets, and this is in brackets in bold. 10th Mountain 1st Marine CPST, Marine QVIR, to central locations under guise of citizen riot control. So it looks like the Marines are preparing, and when they say moving assets to different locations under the guise of citizens riot control, does this mean the assets are individuals that they have taken and arrested, and under the guise of riot control, they're moving them to different locations? It could be. And then we have Red 5, National Military Comm CEN. So what is that? That is the National Military Command Center. It is a Pentagon command and communication center for the National Command Authority, the President of the United States and the United States Secretary of Defense. It's maintained by the Department of the Air Force as the DoD executive agent for NMCC logistics, budgetary, facility, and system support. The NMCC operators are in the Joint Staff, the J3 Operations, the Directorate. The NMCC is responsible for generating emergency action messages, which we saw on top EAM loyalists, to missile launch control centers, nuclear submarines, recon aircraft, and battlefield commanders. The NMCC has 3 main missions, all serving the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff in his role as the principal military advisor to both the Secretary of Defense and the President, also known as the National Command Authority. So these are the 3 things. The primary task of the NMCC is to monitor worldwide events which may be of defense significance. The NMCC also has a crisis response component and a strategic watch component. The NMCC is responsible for generating the emergency action message to all these different areas that we just discussed. So it looks like everything is a go. There's a green light, and these individuals were probably moving into position and maybe moving assets out of this area or into this area under the guise of citizen riot control. Now, assets might have double meanings. It might be that they're moving their military assets in and moving maybe the traders into a different location and doing this under the guise of citizen riot control. Then we go to Red 6, which is Secretary of Defense, Instruct 1. Secretary of Defense relays the orders. United States Secret Service, Castle Rock. Lock down the White House and harden it. Q. This is what Mike Bravo tweeted out. Yesterday, D.C. Mayor wanted the White House to be open up for people to be able to access it from all sides. They organized 1 million people into the city. The mayor stood down the police, kicked out the guard, and now she wants the feds gone too. They intend to take the White House. Post 4,415. This is from The Atlantic. James Maness denounces President Trump, describes him as a threat to the Constitution. Let me just read a portion of this. In an extraordinary condemnation the former defense secretary backed protesters and says the president is trying to turn Americans against one another. James Mattis, the esteemed Marine general who resigned as Secretary of Defense in December of 2018 to protest Donald Trump's Syria policy, has ever since kept studiously silent about Trump's performance as president, but he has now broken his silence, writing an exculpatory broadside in which he denounces the president for dividing the nation and accuses him of ordering the U.S. military to violate the constitutional rights of American citizens. But let's talk about online security. During a recent vote, the U.S. Senate has agreed to give law enforcement agencies access to web browsing history data without needing to obtain a warrant first. It is now more essential than ever to browse the web using a VPN or virtual private network. The VPN I choose is Virtual Shield because it's the fastest, easiest, and has plug-and-play 30-day free trial. Due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield wants to offer a 50% off all VPN plans. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is all about. You have nothing to lose. Click the link below. So Mattis, as we can see, plus McMaster's and many others, they're completely against Trump. They're part of the swamp. We all knew this from the beginning. Remember, they placed these individuals in the White House to give Trump different information, leading him in the wrong direction. But Trump and the Patriots, they already knew this. And did Mattis really resign, or was he fired? Well, here's another link to militarytimes.com. This says senior military leaders being called to testify to Congress about George Floyd protest response. Angry lawmakers will summon top Pentagon leaders to Capitol Hill next week to explain what role military personnel will play in responding to growing demonstrations of racial unrest in major U.S. cities and whether Trump have overstepped his authority as commander-in-chief. So basically what we see here right now is the same thing that we saw in the impeachment process, where all the ambassadors, the disgruntled employees, come out and they're going to tell everyone how the president is not doing the right thing. Now remember, these individuals, they're employees. They take orders from the president. Yes, they might give him advice and say, we think it should be this way, but he has the final say, and he can hire and fire anyone. Again, we're doing the same exact thing, but now it's on the level of generals. Then Q gives us a Washington Examiner article. Pentagon distances itself from Trump on crowd control and laments murder of George Floyd. Defense Secretary Mark Esper delivered a strong condemnation of the murder of George Floyd by Minnesota police officers while attempting to distance the Pentagon from politics and President Trump's call to use the military to quell nationwide protests. So this is very interesting because Mark Esper is the Secretary of Defense, and he's saying, listen, we shouldn't use the military. Trump is saying, well, we might have to use the military. And I do believe that a lot of this is optics. Now, Q gives us the Washington Post article where it says revolt of the generals. So what they're saying here is that we have McMaster's, we have Mattis, we have Esper, all going against Trump. Down below, Q says, riot coordination is in brackets and bold, in select safe zone cities, decontrol mayors, allow staged event, allow former active military brass, assertion of unconstitutional threat to Constitution, mutiny. So they're using the generals to build the narrative that what Trump is doing is completely unconstitutional. This is actually the opposite. Mainstream media, public optics, staging underway because they realize what they're going to do here. If they decide to storm the White House, what do you think is going to happen? So they're building the narrative to say whatever Trump does is completely unconstitutional. Q says alert readiness, severe, critical. Now I know Esper came out and he said that they shouldn't be using the military right now on the protesters. Trump, at this point, he did not enact the Insurrection Act of 1807. He's allowing the governors to control the situation. If you need help from the National Guard, we will help. Now, I don't believe Esper is going to come out and say, yes, we're going to use the military on U.S. soil. We're going to get them. Optics, I believe, would be bad. Now, remember, Q has told us that all of this was going to happen. If Q knew how this was going to play out, they already knew which individuals were part of the swamp. They already knew which individuals wouldn't follow the orders. This is why Mattis is not there. This is why McMaster's is not there. And I do believe optics are very important. I believe Trump is out there saying, listen, we're not doing anything. The Pentagon is not doing anything. So the mainstream media, the D's, the deep state, they believe that Trump does not have the support of his generals, that he's weak right now. And if he uses the Insurrection Act, nothing will happen. The generals will turn on him. So the deep state, they're going to continue their plan. They will try to make their move on the White House. They will continue to destroy, they'll continue to loot and hurt or kill people. The situation that we're watching unfold right now, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Remember, the truth, it can't be told. Sometimes you must show the people the truth. Only at the precipice, the moment of destruction, will people find the will to change. At this critical point, the tables will be turned on the deep state. And I just want to go back to post 1604. This is June 27, 2018. True rule, the people have the power. Rise up and demand they be removed. At some point, military generals will act with the will of the people simply because their soldiers are those same people and have no choice. We stand with you. We are monitoring the situation closely. Stay safe. God bless. Post 4416. This is a link to Fox News, and it says the Minneapolis City Council President, Dem Jeremiah Elson, claimed they're going to dismantle the police. Now, we've been hearing a lot about this, where they're going to dismantle it and glue it back together or get rid of it completely and just form a community-based patrol type of organization. Q says infiltration instead of invasion. James Woods tweeted this out. Here's a solid plan: defund the police, release criminals from jails, refuse to cooperate with the federal law enforcement, open the borders, get rid of bail set limit at which theft is allowed with no arrests, and stir up as much chaos as possible. Trump tweeted this out. Sleepy Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill was a total disaster. It was mass incarceration for black people, many of them innocent. I did criminal justice reform, something Obama and Biden didn't even try to do, and couldn't do even if they tried. Biden can never escape his crime bill. The radical left Democrats' new theme is defund the police. Remember that when you don't want crime, especially against you and your family, this is where Sleepy Joe is being dragged by the socialists. I'm the complete opposite. More money for law enforcement. And it was just a couple of weeks ago where everyone was applauding the first responders, the police, the medical staff, the mayors, the governors. They used the police to arrest anyone that wasn't social distancing, that was opening up their business. And now bricks are being thrown at the same police, calling them all murderers. I mean, does this even make sense anymore? No, it doesn't. Their narrative is falling apart because what they're doing right now is they're just moving from one event to another. This is how desperate they are. Right now, the police unions, they are now abandoning Biden after he is promoting cop reform. They're no longer looking at him. They are now looking at Trump. Post 4417. This is a Twitter link to Carluska P. All I can say is just listen to this.
Is that the nation is panicking. 71% of us want the National Guard in our cities tonight. 58% of us want the military in our cities tonight. All right, the people are panicking. The country is on fire. Now, who is attacking us? Mr. Esper should know this. Right. It's Antifa, Department of Justice, NYPD. Others are saying this very clearly. These are people, by the way, that we faced back in the 1960s and 70s and early 80s. These were people who were far leftist, Marx, Lenin, folks who embraced that ideology. They allied with Black Panther movements, and it took many years to finally put it down. Very dangerous. And now this same group, who is allied, by the way, with the Democratic Socialists, we're talking to Bernie Bros and Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, they're back. They're back with firebombs. They're back with bricks in our suburbs and our downtowns. That's something that Mr. Esper clearly doesn't understand. And then finally, we have a media that is feeding this flame, this horrific fire, this seditiousness. You have brought this up many times, including tonight. Let me read a headline from Slate magazine. Just yesterday, said the following: peaceful protests are an important tool, but so is violence. So now we have a media filling the airways full of this crap. Yeah. Put it all together. And the piece that you mentioned, no more police, because we're going to defund those folks. We can't put forward the National Guard because that would be escalation. So now we take off the military from the table. What does that leave, Tucker? Let me tell you what it leaves. Vigilante justice. That's exactly. It's you and me and everybody watching this program arming ourselves. Is that how we run a republic? No, sir, it is not. And you do not want a country that goes there. And that is precisely where the nation is headed. And we need for all of our leadership to understand that. And if Secretary Esper doesn't get it, doesn't understand that the oath is to protect ourselves from threats, both foreign and domestic, by God, get the hell out of the Pentagon and let somebody lead who gets it. Because that is the oath that he took, that I took, and that the people of this country demand of our leadership in this moment, because we are on fire. Someone do something about it.
Now, under this, Q says, remember your oath. Remember, all these individuals who've been sworn in, police, Marines, elected officials, they all took an oath. Also, Q says, remember why you joined. It's about the person standing next to you. And all these individuals, they swore oath to protect the U.S. from foreign and domestic enemies. When people are out there hurting your population for no reason, setting homes on fire, beating people, looting, this is not a protest. This is not following the First Amendment. This is something that is being driven by something else. And this is the deep state driving it, trying to take back control. Now, Obama, he sees the messages. He sees how the gun control message has been lost. And he's trying to bring it back and take control of the narrative. This is what he tweeted out. On National Gun Violence Awareness Day, we wear orange to honor the victims of survivors of gun violence, which continues to disproportionately harm black communities. Then keep speaking up, voting, and changing laws across the country. Well, Barack Obama, it's too late. People are awake. We see clearly. The people see the true enemy, and more are waking up. First, they tell us you don't need guns because the police will protect you. Then they tell us we're getting rid of the police because they don't protect you, they hurt you. Then they tell us they're going to be disbanding the police force. They're going to be defunding the police force. So now everyone's thinking to themselves, well, wait a minute. If you're defunding the police force, if you're disbanding the police aren't good like you're telling us, well, it seems that we should all carry arms. Guns. Why? To protect ourselves. Their entire narrative has just fallen apart, and Obama is trying to control it because now people are seeing the truth. Now people are seeing if there is a true enemy, what did they want to do to you? They wanted you disarmed, they wanted to get rid of the police, and they wanted chaos. And if you're not armed, how do you protect yourself? When you have 20 people coming at you with bats, what are you going to hold up a bat? You're going to hold up a knife? No. So their message completely fell apart. Post 4,418. This is a Twitter link to Dan Scavino, and it shows a lightning storm over D.C., and it says biblical. This is post 4,419. And Anon put up a meme that says, "What is that?" and down below it says, "What the F is that?" And what they're talking about is that video that Dan Scavino Jr. put up. If you look at the lightning, it forms almost something like a Q in the sky. And the Anon says, "I've never seen lightning do that before." Q says, "Have faith." Post 4,420 gives us a Twitter link to Senator Mike Lee. It says, "Just heard that that Mayor Bowser is kicking the Utah National Guard out of all D.C. hotels tomorrow. More than 1,200 troops from 10 states are being evicted. This is unacceptable." Do you see what is happening? They're removing the protection in D.C. The mayor wrote a letter to Trump saying, listen, you need to remove the barriers in front of the White House. You need to get rid of the National Guard. We're getting rid of the curfew. We are not having any type of protection here in D.C. Post 4,421 gives us a Twitter link to Harlan, and it says, organizers say 1 million people are coming to protest in D.C. this weekend. If coronavirus is really as dangerous as the media claimed just 3 weeks ago, this is basically a biological attack on the nation's capital. Well, if you notice, they don't care about that narrative anymore. Once again, do you see what is happening? Why are all these people going to D.C.? Is it going to be 1 million? No. They're going to bring Antifa, their army, to D.C. The mayor is trying to remove as much blocks as possible. No curfew, no National Guard, no police. Get rid of the barriers in front of the White House. What do you think they're about to do? Post 4,422. Q says, gives us a link to CBS Heritage, and it says, Republican-led Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee authorizes Senator Ron Johnson to issue subpoenas for FBI Crossfire Hurricane, State Department contact author, Steele dossier, and unmasking by former government officials, plus 30 names. And guess what? It has begun. They're going to be subpoenaing all these individuals. Change we can believe in. And of course, who are these people? John Brennan, Sidney Blumenthal, James Clapper, Kevin Kleinsmith, James Comey, Jacob Lew, Dennis McDonough, Sally Moyer, Lisa Page, Joe Pienka, Bill Priestap, Peter Strzok, Susan Rice, and many others. What are they doing? They're building the narrative. All these people, now under oath, have to discuss what they have done. And this is going to lead to the top. They're building the narrative so the American people understand how this started. Q says change we can believe in. Remember, Senate was the key. Post 4,424. Q gives us a Twitter link to Bards FM. And this is a letter from Michael Flynn. And it says, Scott, and this is to Scott Ketterson. If the United States wants to survive the onslaught of socialism, if we are to continue to enjoy self-government, to secure the God-given individual blessings of liberty for ourselves, for our families, then good Americans must accept that each has a moral obligation to participate in the political life of our country. The art and exercise of self-governance requires active participation, Voting matters, but it is only a part-time engagement of the American citizenry and doesn't go far enough if we are to survive as a constitutional republic. I want to see more of our veteran and law enforcement communities become involved in the political life of America. We are participatory experiment in governing. Without a greater commitment, we will continue our slide into the abyss of socialism, and we must not be intimidated by the smear campaigns that will most certainly come with greater and more active participation. We will only keep America if we dedicate ourselves to freedom's victory over the socialist monster by our God citizens accepting greater responsibility. I am done. God bless. Mike. Q says, what happens when the gag order is lifted? Case dismissed from Flynn. He's going to tell everyone everything. Michael Flynn said, I am not done. So Q says, I am not done. Oh no. Once the case is dismissed, the gloves are off. Be all you can be, Army strong. They knew they could not destroy America through invasion. Infiltration at the highest levels of government, media, science, health, military, etc. Final level, Q. Then we move on to post 4,425. This is Arthur Schwartz. It says CNN person with direct knowledge. At Anderson Cooper has been planning a town hall for months with Gary Cohn, Jim Mattis, John Kelly, McMaster to air in September. They will make stuff up and say that Trump is unfit for office. Mattis and Kelly signed on. Cohen and HR are on the fence. Full MSNBC blitzkrieg. Known and ready. October surprise being prepped and warmed. So they're going to try to make a move to say that Trump is unfit for the October surprise. And what do you think Trump has for the October surprise? The Trump card. Post 4,426. Q says, important to understand, MSDNC, social media, projection, we are the minority, is false. We are the majority and growing every second of the day. MSDNC, social media, projection, we are divided, is false. We are united and only getting stronger. People are awake and see what is happening. Patriots have no skin color. Humanity is good. And I want to go back to post 529 because I believe this post and another post really sums up everything that's going on right now. Be ready. Mainstream media coming big way. We see all, we hear all. Fight, fight, fight. Conspiracy push coming. Mainstream media lost control. D lost slave grip. D lost center voters. Libs are minority. Mainstream media projects as big movement. Fake news. 4 to 6% lost forever. Hello, George. Now that's very interesting that it says hello, George. Is that George Soros? Will he be the first arrest? Trump tweeted this out. The incompetent mayor of Washington, D.C., Mayor Bowser, who budgets, is totally out of control, and is constantly coming back to us for handouts, is now fighting with the National Guard, who saved her from great embarrassment. Over the last number of nights, if she doesn't treat these men and women well, then we'll bring in a different group of men and women. So is Trump talking about the Insurrection Act? I do believe so. Let's go back to post 521. This is January 13, 2018. We are fighting for life. We are fighting for good. We are at war. Not everything will be clean. Scare necessary event. Do you trust the U.S. military? Do you trust the chain of command? Have faith. We are in control. The patriots are in control. Have faith. You are chosen for a reason. You are being provided the highest level of intel to ever be dropped publicly in the history of the world. Use it. Protect and comfort those around you. Where we go one, we go all. And this weekend, as we see things unfold, just remember, this has been planned out from the beginning. People say, well, why are the Patriots just letting this happen? Again, the people need to see it. You just can't explain it to them. How do you explain someone committed crimes against humanity? Don't you have to show them? Because if you just tell them, they don't believe. If you show them, they believe. And remember, we're at war with the deep state. It's not going to be easy. It's not snap your finger, we get our republic back, we get our country back. Because these individuals, they're going to fight and fight and fight until the very end. They don't want to give up control because they know what's at the end of all of this. It's prison. It's the loss of everything that they've been doing. All the money that they made, all the things that they have done, the crimes they have committed, it will be all exposed to the people, to the world. And they know this. And it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But remember, Trump, the Patriots, they mapped this out for us. They knew this was coming. And they're prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.